Today, I'm sitting down with illustrator Jamie Lee Reardin. She is one of the most incredible illustrators I've come across in a very long time. Her work has led to some of the most interesting collaborations, and I am very pleased to share her story with you. I couldn't be happier to talk to you. I've been such a fan of yours ever since I discovered you on Instagram, which is the way we discover a lot of artists these days.
Yeah, well,
And
thank you.
I'm so happy that you agreed to do this because I really do love putting a spotlight onto artists that really spend a lot of their time, just doing what they do best, which is creating. And I feel like it is such an important thing to put a face with the work. What inspires you to do the kind of work that you do? Like, where does the inspiration come from?
Right. Well, I guess the main inspiration has always been fashion and couture. So I that's just always the basis of my work, basically. Um, Over the years, my drawing style has been evolving. So my work used to be a lot darker, and I would kind of gravitate towards the darker collections like McQueen and all those elaborate runway shows that he would put on back in the day, which I still enjoy very much. But I think my work is kind of taking a lighter turn now. But fashion is always the forefront of my inspiration.
Well, we have that in common because McQueen is
Mhm.
literally one of my favorite designers of all time.
Yeah, I really like the theatrics of his stuff, especially like his old runway shows. There was one called The Horn of Plenty that was like one of my go-tos. I would go to all the time for
Yeah,
inspiration. Yeah, I love that big production that he would put on to really like wow the crowds.
I remember that one. I remember it was a great one. Um,
Yeah.
is he one of the main designers that inspire you, or are there other ones as well?
Yeah, back when I started about like 13 or 14 years ago and I really started getting into fashion illustration full time, he was one of my main inspirations. And then I mean, it's kind of been all the big fashion houses that have inspired me at different times. Like right now, I'm really into Schiaparelli, and that's been a huge source of inspiration.
Yeah,
And I worked with Dior for a while, so that was also very inspiring working with them. And yeah, it just kind of changes
I think I question
all the
people's
time.
humanity if Schiaparelli doesn't inspire them. You
Oh
know,
my gosh, I know. It's been so good. I love Daniel Roseberry. And he also is like a really talented illustrator on top of being an amazing designer, which I don't think is always something that you see. So it's really fun to see his illustrations. I like that he shows that process.
yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's so integral to, audiences that don't understand that, how
Hmm.
someone comes up with that. And it's why
Right.
I love talking to artists like you because we want to in on your process. We want to know like what makes your brain work and how you come up with all these amazing things. Leads me to my next question. Are you
Yeah.
self-taught or did you train at an art school or how did you arrive at this talent of yours?
Well, I've always loved drawing. So I've been drawing since I was a kid. I always focused on like Disney characters. I would just draw them nonstop. And that's kind of where my love of illustration came from. I loved animation and I had a lot of books on how to draw cartoons and I would just practice a lot at home. And then for university, I went to fashion school up in Toronto.
Mhm.
In that course, we did have some fashion illustration courses, which was like my favorite thing to do.
Yeah.
But I didn't really consider a career in illustration because I didn't really know enough about what that would involve. I didn't even know it was an option really. Um, and so, but yeah, I learned a lot in my university courses. Those were really great. I've taken a lot of lessons I still use today. And beyond that, no, it wasn't like a formal art school training or anything. I wish I had done something like that, but I didn't.
So it's a natural thing that you went in to university to go into something else, and then
Hmm.
you found this talent based on I would imagine people's response, authentic response to what you're doing. When did you start listening to that response that people had to your work?
Oh, well, I didn't know there was any response really until Instagram came about. So I didn't really have anyone to show it to like, that knew the industry and knew that this was like a career that could be pursued. So
Yeah.
it was just something I knew I loved to do. I had tried out some other jobs that weren't, I decided I really didn't want to do. And that kind of led me to like back to what I loved. And I was like, I have to be able to do something that revolves around drawing and art because that's really the only thing I'm passionate about. So yeah, I just started drawing fashion illustrations and like just drawing from images and different things that I enjoyed. And then once Instagram came about, I started posting on there. And then it kind of, that's really how I started getting a little bit of recognition and people wanting to work with me.
So it blew up through the use of Instagram, the
Yeah.
attention to your work, and has it led to collaborations for you? And what kinds of collaborations have you done?
Yeah. I mean, it's been like it kind of like launched my whole career. So I've been really thankful that I was on Instagram at that time when like they didn't have tagging yet. Like it was just coming about that you could like at somebody. And
Hmm.
so when that feature came around, I was like, oh my gosh, now I can like connect with all these people that were always out of reach to me unless you like were really well connected in the industry.
Right.
So I started drawing different they weren't influencers at the time, but like different style icons that were at all the fashion shows, and I would tag them in it, and then it kind of just started from there. And one of the first ones I drew was Taylor Tomasi Hill, who worked for Moda Operandi, and also Lauren Santo Domingo. And then through those illustrations, I ended up doing some work for Moda Operandi, and that was kind of like the first thing I got that really started the ball rolling.
Did fashion labels take notice, and what was that like?
Yes, actually, I ended up working with Dior Beauty. They signed me as like an artist in residence and beauty ambassador. I think that was like 10 years ago now. So they were really helpful in my career. They kind of like set up a lot of press for me and opportunities for me to go to Paris and draw at the shows and do live illustration at their events. And it was a really cool opportunity that I don't really know how it came to me, but it came through Instagram. So I was very fortunate for that.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Mhm.
You mentioned Disney villains. What villains did you identify with, and what does that look like, for you in your work?
Yeah, well, Disney in general has always been like a big inspiration to me. I love animation and wish I kind of had taken that route as well in my art. But yeah, Disney villains, Cruella de Vil was always my go-to villain. There was something about her, like, I don't know, just spindly body and just
Yeah.
her harshness but she was still kind of elegant in a way, but also just bent and awkward. I don't know. I just always took to her. I just liked her body language and how they portrayed her
And mine was
as a
Maleficent.
villain.
I was
Oh, yes,
I was a
yes.
Maleficent guy. And in fact, I even dressed as her for Halloween.
Oh,
And
really? Oh my gosh. That was my daughter dressed as her as well. She's so regal and like she's such a great character.
yes, she is. And I love that she doesn't feel feminine or masculine. She feels like
Right, for sure.
non-binary to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Yeah, definitely. I never thought of that. You're right.
have you ever collaborated with Disney at all? Like, have they seen or noticed your work and
No.
acknowledged it?
No.
Uh,
Sadly not yet, but hopefully one day I'll be able to do something. I don't really know what that would look like, but maybe at some point
yeah.
um, there'll be a type of collaboration.
I've been looking over some of the things that you've done, and one of the things was Kit. Can you explain to me what Kit is?
Yes. So the kit is a clothing line by Daniel Vosovic, and he was on Project Runway. I think he was on season two, so he's like one of the originals.
Yeah.
Um, and he started a collection several years ago, and it's all made to order. So the great thing
Oh,
about it is there's no waste or excess clothing that gets made.
I
So it's a really great company in that sense, and he's launching like new collections like every couple months, like, so there's always something new on the website. And so
um,
he came to me a couple of years ago and asked if I'd be interested in uh, doing some illustrations that would appear on the clothes and basically have like a little capsule collection featuring my artwork.
that's
So
amazing.
we got to, yeah, it was
So
really
your
cool.
artwork is on the fabric itself, like you.
It is,
Yeah.
yeah. They printed it right onto like denim jackets, denim pants, and like a dress. It's really, yeah, it's really awesome. It was cool to see it that way, and a really different kind of project for me to do, where I got to be a part of the design process in a way, and figure out if my drawings even looked good on clothing.
Well, I can't see how they wouldn't. I mean, your drawings would look good on anything I could possibly think of. And plus, it's really important to, I mean, let's be honest. You know, zero waste is the only way to go. I mean, that is
Yeah,
hopefully where we're headed. And
I
I love
agree.
that you're conscious about, you know, your collaborations like that. It's a really important.
Yeah, it was really cool. He's really like, I feel like he's ahead of the times on this. So hopefully people start catching up with him.
I also looked at some of the series that you've worked on, and one of them was Mad Women.
Yeah, so those were actually, I hadn't really thought of them being a collection until I put them all together, but it was just a few portraits I had drawn over a span of time that I thought all kind of looked like they belonged in a little,
Yeah.
I don't know, society almost. Um, and I think I called it Mad Women because I believe they refer to Cruella de Vil as a mad woman or something within 101 Dalmatians. And so I liked that title for them. And yeah, it was just like some kind of eerie portraits when I was in my kind of Tim Burton inspired phase, which I'm always inspired by Tim Burton, but I was really leading into it for a while.
Yeah.
And I created those, you know, very gaunt looking faces with large eyes and sunken cheeks and just some things I enjoyed.
Yeah, I love that so much.
Yeah.
It's one of the things that I think, you know, is one of I love Tim Burton first of all. Like all your
Mm-hmm.
references are on point because they're all the things that inspire me as well.
Oh, cool. I
So
love that.
it's almost like you're in my brain pulling out very same things that
That's so
inspire me.
cool.
But I am unfortunately I don't have your talent for drawing, and that's one of the things I love to do is highlight people that have
Oh,
talents beyond belief that I don't possess, and really bring them to
oh.
the forefront. I
But you
love.
have so many talents in your what you do.
Well, I mean, I'm not terrible at what I do at all. I do have gifts in some areas, but drawing them is not one of them. And
Cool. I mean, people always, I have a lot of people thinking that like a makeup artist could also be a really good artist and vice versa. Um, but I mean, I can't put makeup on anybody. So,
well, I mean, I know quite a few of my makeup artist friends that are very talented at drawing. So
oh yeah. Oh my gosh,
that is
that's
true in
cool.
some cases, but that
Oh
definitely.
my gosh, that's so cool.
I always like to really sort of get to know artists. Like, what were you like as a child? What were you like as a 10-year-old, as a
Ooh.
teenager? Like, did the same things inspire you today as they did then? Or are you just doing them like on a much more elevated level than you did when you were a kid?
Yeah, I think definitely I've stuck to my roots of like my love for Tim Burton. That kind of started with Beetlejuice, like watching that when I was very young. Probably too young to be watching that movie, but
Yeah,
so yeah, that has stuck with me. But I mean, as I am now, painfully shy and just kind of quiet until you know I get to know somebody, and then I can be quite a chatterbox, I guess.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, just very shy. Didn't you know? Yeah,
Another thing we have in common.
yeah,
You know, shyness is a misunderstood thing, I think. You know,
yeah,
it's I mean, it does take certain people to bring your true self out when you're shy and to really open
for
up.
sure.
I definitely understand it, and I think a lot of artists are that way. We get very comfortable in our
Mhm.
introverted worlds, and
Yeah, and it's like it's not even uncomfortable really because you're just observing everything and taking it all in. So I've never felt like awkward in my shyness except for when I'm like wanting to say something and like I'm just trying
yeah,
to fit it in the right part of the conversation.
yeah. Or when like,
Yeah.
or when it doesn't. Sometimes like people will observe you and expect you to be like very exuberant or
Right.
big personality. Like oftentimes I get that, and I'm
Uh,
I'm much like you know. So you know, being extroverted is almost like a muscle you work at. You know, you get
yes.
better at it with time, but it's not something that's like authentically a place you go to. Your default,
Right.
my default is more introverted, but I do try to, you know, find that balance in there.
Yeah, no, that's it's a good thing to try and find that balance. I need to do more of that too.
Well, yeah, because I mean, I think artists, especially, we spend a lot of our time alone, and we
Hmm.
get comfortable in that aloneness, and
Yeah.
you know, it can it can be very almost like dangerously comfortable because
Yeah, for
every in your
sure.
apartment because you get to like it so much.
Yeah.
Tell me what a creative day looks like for you when when the if the paintbrushes and the pens and the pencils were taken away. What would Jamie do with her day?
Ooh,
And if you could do anything
yeah.
other than draw.
I know. I saw. I don't know. It's a really tough one. But I guess I'd be looking if this was allowed. If I'd be going and looking for like inspiration.
Mhm.
So probably go to a museum. Just go sit and have coffee somewhere on a patio and watch people. Um, those are the main things I would do if I also had the time to do them. Yes.
Yeah.
Or apart from that, I'd probably be like organizing. I like to organize my space and like clean
Yeah.
it, and then I can feel like I'm setting myself up for success. So anything that involves like preparing my space for work is always a little bit relaxing to me in a way.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
speaking of preparing your space for work, one of
Mhm.
the things I wanted to ask you that I think is very inspiring to artists, even upcoming artists especially, is what are your favorite tools that you work with? Like, what are the things that you can't live without when you're going about your process?
Oh yeah. Well, I'm always starting. I start most things with a sketch, so like pencil and sketch pad is always great. Aside from that, I use gouache a lot for my artwork. I really love the effect that it has. It's kind of like, are you familiar with gouache paint?
I'm not, but
Okay, it's
for,
kind of it's like a water-based paint. It's just
okay.
thicker than a watercolor, so it's very opaque and like almost velvety. And I just love the effect that it has. So I use gouache paint a lot. I use the Winsor Newton brand if you want specific details, and
And
some paintbrushes.
you work all in paint and pencil.
I do switch my mediums a lot, and just because I get bored or I see something and I want to interpret it in this certain way with this material.
Yeah,
So I use like charcoal or oil pastels. I've really enjoyed using as well.
yeah.
Um, Watercolor and ink pens as well.
How do you give back to your artist community and how do you give back to your community at large? Like, it's a really important thing, I think, for all of us to think about,
Hmm.
especially as creative people and,
Right.
supporting one another in the creative realm.
I'm always looking for ways to do that. And one day I would love to be so well connected, like within the industry, that I can help other people like get to get a certain job they want or partner with a brand that they want. So I'm always kind of thinking ahead to that and like how I will hopefully will be able to help other artists like me. But like I guess I still feel like an amateur, even though I've been doing this for a while. But I guess to help people, I just try to be accessible, usually like through social media or email. So if anybody comes to me with like a question about industry or about illustration in general or tips or wanting me to look at their work, I've done that before.
Mhm.
Um, I'm finding it harder to find time now because I have kids and it's a little bit trickier to get back to everybody. But when I do have people ask, I try and be as helpful as possible.
I,
Just because I didn't really have a guide to like talk through pricing with, and I
right.
try and be as helpful as I can without, giving away too much information about pricing. But
Yeah.
because there's no guide, I do like to be a little bit transparent about that.
Yeah, and I think that's so helpful for artists because I think one of the things that we do that we're so good at is undervaluing ourselves as artists.
Yes,
We don't know
for
how to
sure.
we don't know how to price ourselves and
Yeah.
assess that for ourselves. And so it is a very valuable thing. And you may not think you're doing as much as maybe you could or should, but I can
Mhm.
tell you, as a creative person myself, that that kind of information and just this interview in itself, like letting us in to your process a little bit it's helpful beyond imagination, and it's what the creative community needs the most, I think, and because it's very
Yeah.
comforting and it's very confirming. If people were
Yeah.
to buy your work, where would they find it the most? Is Etsy the best?
Just my website. Yeah. So my website is just jamieliereardin.com, and I have my shop right there. Um, so that I can keep track of everything easily and it can kind of be a part of my whole portfolio. I sell prints on my website. They're numbered prints, like limited editions. So I have a pretty big variety on there. And I also sell a few originals, which I should probably add to again. And then just, yeah, Christmas time is when I try to bring out a little bit more merchandise and like gift options for people to purchase.
if someone's commissioning you to do some art,
Mhm.
are you collaborative on that?
Yeah, I guess like with brands, obviously I'm very collaborative and I want their input, but I also want some freedom. So it's kind of that like balance of being able to do what I do best and
Yeah.
also work in what they want, what they're looking for. When I do like portraits for just people, um, some people are very they have like a great vision in their head and they share that with me, and that's really helpful because then I can kind of work in their what they're envisioning into the portrait.
Yeah.
And if it's something that's out of my league or out of my range or comfortability, then I will just politely decline, but that's rare.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
all.
Yeah.
Are you working on any new series? And if so, what does that look like?
I so I'm working on. I've been really inspired by like the 1950s lately and fashion and photography from that decade. So I'm kind of leaning into that and see. I don't really know what I'm creating for it yet, but I did a few illustrations at Christmas time. I called the Cuckoo Birds, and they were just some very like vintage, whimsical looking paintings I did. And I think I'm going to do a few more like that and see where it takes me. I don't really have a set plan.
I like
I have
this.
a few plans, but I don't always like to talk about everything until I've
Of course,
produced
of course.
it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. When it comes to illustrators, who are your biggest influences, and would you ever consider doing a book of illustrations of your own?
Okay, yes. I have so many artists who've inspired me and still inspire me. So going back to Disney, like Mary Blair, she's one of the all-time greatest. I could get lost in her paintings and her color combinations and just the way she makes everything look so ethereal. She really like, captures a mood. So I love her and a lot of the Disney artists actually. I love like Ivan Earl. He did the fantastic background of Sleeping Beauty, all the detail and like it's a totally different way of painting, but it's so mesmerizing. I can't get enough of it. So lots of Disney people inspire me. Tim Burton has always been inspiration, and then like old storybooks like Madeline and Eloise, like Hilary Knight's illustrations for Eloise are just so playful and wonderful, and they just like they have such life to them and they're just little lines, and I just love that about illustration, that you can capture so much of a person's mood and personality through that.
The simplest lines you can really.
Yeah, he did such a fantastic job with that book. And yeah, yes, I would like to do a book. I have been working on a few things that again I don't want to talk about because I don't really know, know what's going to come
All I
of
can
them,
say
so
is I feel a book coming out of you. You don't
yes,
have
it's
to,
in there, it's on its way.
confirm or deny, but I feel one coming out of you, and it's one that I will be getting when it does eventually surface in the world.
Oh, I hope it will be soon.
Well, thank you so much, Jamie, for joining us on this episode of LieckMinded. And I got so much out of talking to you.
Well, thank you for inviting me on. It was really nice to talk to you as well.
You are an inspiration, and I know everyone else feels the same way. Thank you so
Oh, well, thank you. That's very nice. Thank you.
I hope you were all as inspired as I was. If you liked what you saw, remember to click like and subscribe. And always remember, nothing's off limits when you're like minded.